Vanessa, so excited to have you on the podcast here today. How are you?
Hi, Jared. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is probably like the one, you grew up in Florida. This is probably like the one cloudy day that we've had in like the last 2 months, which has been really, besides the hurricane, right? Which was not great.
Well, fun
Um,
fact, we're in the middle of a bomb cyclone that looks like a hurricane on a weather map in the Bay Area right now.
oh, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm not in Florida and I'm still getting hit with like hurricane-like things.
Yeah. When you move there, you're like, I'm fine.
Yeah,
And then
I'm
what
bringing
is
the
it?
hurricanes with me, y'all.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just can't believe that we're already in mid-November, which is the craziest thing to me. Like it felt like this year just started and where did it go?
Yeah. Seriously. It's been
Um,
wild.
I think it's also been because there's been a lot happening this year, and not just just in the world and with the hurricanes, but also it seems like there's a new product announcement every single day from some company. These models are updating so rapidly
Yep.
across the AI space. So let's just kind of kick things off. First off, if you don't mind, like for those that maybe are just my favorite people to reach are the ones that are just meeting you too.
Yes.
Just kind of give them a quick little bit of your background so they get to know Vanessa a little bit.
Yeah, so the inside joke with Jared and I is he's in Florida. I was born and raised in Miami and left Miami, not intending to. I always thought I would move back, but I didn't. My background's I studied computer science at Georgia Tech, worked at big companies, so I was at Microsoft, but I worked in gaming. I worked at Xbox, so I worked on cool things. Moved to the area, worked in more gaming. I've been a product person my whole career. So the first half in gaming, and then I moved into enterprise software. So I worked at Twilio and then Box pre-IPO. And in a weird twist of fate, came to venture. But given my product background and passion, I stay on the earlier side of things in venture. So I really love investing at the Series A. I love doing seed, and I've also led some Series B investments. So check sizes anywhere between a million to 40 million, really. It's kind of a wide spectrum, but yeah, I've been at it for 8 years as a partner here, investing in both consumer and enterprise, but always at the app layer.
Interesting. And really cool that you worked at Xbox. I just, by the way, just kind of separate because we're going to be talking AI here today. Recently interviewed the CEO of InWorld, which was super cool, talking about how AI is basically creating like your friend that you can play a video game with versus it's incredible some of the things that they're doing. Must be cool from you kind of coming also from that gaming world to see so much that's happening in that space as well.
Yeah, and I have a lot of friends who are still in gaming who never transitioned out of the industry and are so deeply passionate about it. And to see how they're adopting technology, I would say gaming is always one of the earliest adopters of technology. So I love being able to spend time with my friends from Xbox, understanding how they're adopting it and where they see the future, because it's really impressive. I would say like 2 years ago, they were already talking about how they were using generative AI in building out the storyline, testing the game economy, designing, like working with designers for the environments and the characters. But it's always been the producers or the game designers speaking in words, and then the designers interpreting that and coming up with a version, and then just this iteration would take forever. So them being able to put some stuff together to start off the conversations with visual designers, it's been just amazing how they've adopted the technology and where it's all going.
And it'll just continue to go super fast too, which is the crazy part. Just you really like more so than I remember kind of when we were going through kind of the blockchain cycle, right, a few years ago. And it didn't seem though like this is totally different, obviously, because even the updates to the different softwares and the announcements that we were hearing from these companies, the speed at which we're moving right now is crazy. So um, I know you have a lot of conversations with people. Like, would love to hear. Obviously, like anything that we talk about here is your personal opinion. Just like from your colleagues and stuff. Like, what are they excited about? What are you hearing? What excites you personally about this AI space right now?
I'll start with like, I'm not excited about things that say, let's replace humans. and call me an optimist, but I think there's something like really special and unique about being human. And I think we're asking ourselves that question, what does it mean to be human? And I'm not one of those like philosophical people, but I think it is an important question. And I do think that humans are a special species. And I think replacing them is kind of a bold statement. So I'm a less excited about pitches that start off with, we're going to replace all the humans. I'm more excited about pitches that really show companies and areas and industries where like you can take a person who's a good performer and make them excellent. And so I'm very interested in that and understanding, how do you define someone being excellent? Is it throughput? Is it output? Is it whatever? And then how do you actually enable that to happen? Because that's actually, it's a common thing people say, but it's a really bold statement if you're trying to prove it. And so I know it's kind of like a very generic, I'm excited about anything that makes humans better, but I think it's actually pretty hard to pull off. And there are some areas where I think it's helpful. I think it's like game changing, but it can be very helpful. Obviously, marketing and sales can be very helpful in some applications of it in HR, or like career planning and career progression can be helpful. I think on the consumer side, it can be helpful on planning, like anything planning related, like just planning, call it financial planning, trip planning, party planning, wedding, like any planning. I think when you plan something, there's so many things that need to fit into this puzzle, and you're like manually readjusting all budgets and timelines and vendors. And so I think, in that area, people are good planners. AI is probably better, and they can supercharge you. Can it replace you? Probably not. So I like those areas, to be honest. And there's a bunch of areas that like in an enterprise that don't exist as categories yet that I'm like waiting for. When someone's like, this isn't a category, it doesn't fit in CRM and it doesn't fit in HRIS, but it's like somewhere in the middle. I'm like, yes, somewhere in the middle that doesn't exist. Let's have that conversation.
It's also going to be interesting to see. We're also going to have user behavior is going to have to change a little bit, right? Because now our pricing models are beginning to kind of go from, everything for so long was subscription based, right? And now it's going more towards usage. I know the usage is not a new thing, right? But I feel like more AI applications, like I've seen more like buy credits to be able to use this tool than I did for any of the other softwares that I was using over the years outside of like Google Cloud, AWS, right? So what do we have? I guess, where do we have to tread lightly in terms of also introducing new pricing models? Because that could probably slip up. Some companies could slip up right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think pricing, it's exciting because if historically for B2B application layer, it was SaaS. Like that was just, like, you didn't have a discussion about it. It was just expected. It wasn't a lever. It wasn't a way to differentiate. It was just like, you're SaaS, I'm 10% cheaper, right? But in this, with this environment, you can start now adding, usage-based billing. Other people are talking about value-based billing. You only pay for the value we provide. And I think all these things are super interesting. And I think companies are going to experiment a lot. And I think it could be a really interesting way to differentiate, because ultimately, when things go well is when you align yourself as closely as you can with the success of your customer. And so if your pricing model is aligned with them being successful, that's a differentiator, right? So I think there's creative ways to play around with it. To your point, usage-based alone, it has its benefits of like, if you're not using it, you don't pay for it, but it has its downsides of like, if it is great and awesome, then you're going to use a lot of it. And that can be hard for a customer to project how much they're going to spend, and they have to budget things ultimately, which is why SaaS was so attractive. I think that it's likely going to end up being a hybrid of the two. Like, you're going to want to make sure you cap transaction-based billing so that there's no surprises for your customer. And then you're going to want some kind of platform fee, because until they're up and consuming, you still need to get paid. And so it's probably going to be a hybrid of a couple of these things. What I think is interesting and also tricky is the value-based billing. I think it's super clear if it's like, okay, I'm going to solve a ticket for you. Customer success customer support managers, IT, help desk folks, like they know how to measure the cost of a ticket and they like operate with these metrics. So if you're like, okay, a ticket costs you $5, yes, I will do it for 2. Great. And then like very clear the value that you're providing. So that's a really clean example of paying for a unit of work or paying for the value. But what's less clear is like if you're a project management tool, like how like more projects are completed, well, that's probably not all you. It's probably like the team too, or and even if it is 100% your software that's making people have higher throughput, then very clear on year 1, what do you benchmark on year 2 or 3? Because the previous year was you, right? And so I think that gets tricky, and everyone's talking about how it's moving in that direction. But I'm like, oh, I see some challenges there. If you can do it, great, but it's not trivial.
Yeah, and also does it start adding to sales cycles a little bit because now you have to. It's not as straightforward as a subscription, right? Where okay, I know this is how many accounts that I'm going to need for my company versus now you kind of have to. I'm noticing already on all these different sites, there's the calculators, there's the articles that they're writing about how our pricing model is structured. It is not clear. So it's hard enough to get softwares through at some of these larger
Yeah.
companies. How do you do it now when it's not exactly clear? So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think it can't be too fancy. It can't be too like clever. It has to be pretty straightforward. But I think like the hard thing about SaaS, just so people are like, well, why don't we just stick with SaaS? There's a couple problems with it. One, SaaS is great when compute and storage costs are super low. So like you add another seat and like your margins are so high it doesn't matter. When you have very compressed margins because compute's expensive, like the API call is expensive, then you can't charge a seat per seat pricing and allow all you can eat API calls because you can get destroyed, right? So it's very hard to charge SaaS pricing if the underlying technology is more expensive. And the other thing is if the promise of this technology to make people more productive, then you might need less seats. And so instead of then your net dollar retention is very challenged. And your business model then again gets squashed. And so we know the challenges of being SaaS only, but we also know the challenges of going transaction based only or value based only. So I think the right answer is some hybrid of all three in a more predictable with like a downside and an upside capped is likely where we're going to land.
Interesting. I want to shift focus a little bit, Vanessa, to talk about something that you and I were chatting about a little bit before we started recording. Let's talk about what differentiates Gen AI companies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one, it's the technology is so amazing. Like we historically, software we had some automation, but it was really hard. And when I was at Box, I had thought a lot about how people get work done. And it really falls into like 3 big buckets. Like bucket 1, you search and synthesize information. Like most of people's day is just trying to find stuff, right? Like you want to find the email, you need to find the invoice, you need to find the last time someone made this reservation, you need to find the last time, like you're just finding things. Like so much of your time is finding things. And then when you find the 15 things you're looking for, then you have to like synthesize, what does it all mean? What's the pattern? Do they need a refund? Like you synthesize the thing you searched for. That's like the bulk of your time. The next is like you generate an asset, right? Like you generate a PowerPoint, you need to generate a quote, you need to generate a something, right? Like you create assets. So that's like content generation of sorts. And then the last is like you take actions. So you get this information, you may need to process something, hit send or make the refund or send a truck to go pick something up or whatever. But like there's typically like a workflow that's mostly like not highly repeatable, but in most cases for most jobs, there's some repeatability in the things you do. And so that's like the workflow task completion side. That's work in a nutshell. It's like those 3 things. And when you looked at software, it would like help around some of the things. Like you could store stuff that you can find or share it with someone else so they can find it now and read it. Approvals, like all these things, right? But with Generative AI, like it can do a lot of this stuff for you. Like all of a sudden search is not like I found the document for you, but I found it, I read it, and I synthesized it for you. Like that's crazy. When it comes to content creation, before it was like, I'll be a good editor, I'll be a spell checker, I will, whatever. Now it's like, I can just write the thing for you. You're like, wow. And then the actions, we had RPA for a while, but it was always broken and expensive and hard to implement. But now you have things like, okay, I see you do the same thing 10 times over and over again. Do you want me to do it for you? You're like, wow, you can do this for me with agents, right? And so generative AI is truly itself an inflection moment. Like this does feel like different than blockchain because it takes something, all aspects of someone getting their work done, and just like completely changes it. So we are in that moment of everything's changing. At the same time, it's never been easier to build this stuff. Like the developer tools for this is amazing, which is very different than blockchain, might I add. The dev tools for this is amazing. You don't have to re-platform. You don't have to go launch your own servers. You just make an API call and boom, you have the functionality in your app.
It's great. I was just messing around with the other day, GitLab's, GitHub's Copilot they released, and just being able to communicate back and forth with it, generating all the code that I need to and then I created basically a quick board game, and I'm playing the board game within 2 minutes. And it'll just continue to get better. That's the crazy thing. It's not where it needs to be. I do think we overstate where video editing is at with AI. It's wrong a lot.
You would know.
Yeah, it's most people haven't fully figured that out yet. Image generation is still not where it needs to be. Like you still end up spending almost as much time once you get an image fixing it and correcting. Text is still an issue.
Yeah, Jared, but here's the thing, I am a complete rookie with making a video. If you were like, go make a video, I'd be like, whoa, boy. And I made a video a couple weeks ago, and I used some tools, and I can't name the companies, but I used some companies, and I'm like, oh my God, my video is not awesome, but I made a video. I'm so excited. Says person who would never be able to edit and make a video with captions and effects and all the things, right? My husband's a designer. He's also an amazing artist. And so anytime I needed graphics or something, I'd bug him. I'm like, please make this thing for me. And now I'm like, okay, I can make it myself. It's not awesome. And then I can edit it. But now I can make my own graphic, which I used to my poor husband used to bug him all the time for it. Now I can just not do that.
Sure.
And so it made someone who couldn't do it at all be able to do it at a novice level. And I call that a win. Huge win. But is it going to make the question is for experts or people who are really good, can it make them that much better? And that's a big question. I don't know. Not yet.
Yeah, it helps with pulling the key pieces of information out, and also understanding where edits need to be made, right, based on certain words and things like that. You're seeing a lot of text-based editors now, right? You just delete the word and it cuts your video. That. That's pretty incredible. Yeah, it's interesting. No, you're right. You're right. Let's kind of as we wrap up here. These are usually right around 20 minutes. What excites you about? I'm thrilled about it, but what excites you about the Human-X conference coming up early next year?
I'm excited to just do mind melding with all the people that are thinking about this stuff all the time, right? I told you earlier, I was I want to know exactly how you're using this stuff. I'm just going to want to run around and be like, tell me, you're building this thing. How are you doing it? I want to hear about all the cool ways people are building things. Inevitably, everyone's talking about the future of where is it going, where is it lacking. I want to understand where it's falling short for people. I want to understand where people want to spend time developing and making it better. And we have so many people from so many different walks of life going that it's great. I feel like in one way I'm getting out of my bubble, and in other ways I'm walking into a convergence of all bubbles. And I think it's I'm super jazzed about it. I think it's gonna be really fun.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. And March is going to be here before we know it, which is also scary. But we still obviously have some time. But Vanessa, I want to thank you so much for coming on, having a great conversation, nice casual, great to hear your thoughts on Gen AI and a few other things, and look forward to future conversations.
Yeah, me too.